All right, well, it's nice to be here at the Price-Pottenger Foundation. I very much believe in the principles of Weston A. Price and Francis Marion Pottenger, and I don't believe in them because I have nothing else to do. I believe in them because it works. And I've actually been in clinical practice for 24 years, and what I've found consistently through my professional practice is that, well, the medical system just gets more and more technical. I actually have to get more and more simple. And most of my patients are people that have spent huge amounts of money, sometimes $500,000, trying to get over a disease or a number of diseases, or have had 20 years of serious back pain or neck pain. And they come to me with files that, you know, oftentimes take me a week, literally a week to read through, because there's just so many tests in there, so much data. So I look at all the data, and all the data does is reinforce, wow, this person's got a lot of problems. But anybody could have seen that. The question is, what are we going to do about it, right? So I get all these people coming from around the world with all this information, and part of the problem is that many times, frequently, actually most of the time, the information they get from the doctors conflicts. So one doctor says you have chronic fatigue syndrome. The next doctor says you have irritable bowel syndrome. The next doctor says it's all in your head. The next doctor says it's genetic, get over it. The next doctor says, well, you're 45, what do you expect, right? So there's really nothing they can grasp onto, nothing to help people move forward. Now, my career began working with elite athletes. I was the trainer of the United States Army boxing team. And I spent 2 years working with an osteopathic physician who was the team doctor. So I learned from the very beginning of my career how to take care of sports injuries from an osteopath. And I did the massage therapy for the fighters, and my job was to design all their nutrition programs. And I got on the Army boxing team by boxing my way onto the team. So my whole background really began in high-performance athletics. In high-performance athletics, nobody really cares how you do it, just that you do it, right? So we don't really care what you do to win. On a boxing team, we used to say there's only 2 judges, you better bring them if you want to win K and O. Because all the fluffy stuff never really matters. Nobody remembers who got a silver medal in the Olympics, do they? Right? Unless it was you. And so the reason I preface with this statement is that we've got a medical system that seems to have lots of great ideas, but there's no consistency in the etiology, what caused the individual's problems. What I've found over and over again, from years and years and years of working with patients, is that I could track the etiology back to just a few things. And it's sort of a paradox. Many of my students come and spend as much as 5.5 years training with me, and I give them very big manuals. The Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2 manual weighs 8.8 pounds. It's a great doorstop. It's a great paperweight. If you want to test the suspension in your car, throw a few in the back. But at the end of the training, after 1.5 years of holistic lifestyle coaching, I say, okay, now, what do you really know? Right? What do you know for sure? And that's what it always boils down to. And my program's multidisciplinary. I've got medical doctors in there. I've got chiropractors in there. I've got osteopaths. I've got nutritionists. I've got podiatrists. I've got everything you can think of in my training program. And at the end of the day, it always boils down to, and I say this to the practitioners to make a point, what do you know for sure when it comes to health? What do you know works every time? What do you know for sure, if it's missing in somebody's life, is going to cause stress and eventually lead to a disease? So we'll get to the what do you know for sure stuff, because we already know that a bunch of wise guys with lots of data isn't getting us healthy, is it? We already know that just because we can fly Boeing 777s and space shuttles, it doesn't have anything to do with our level of intelligence and health. We already know that MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, and fancy technology doesn't do anything but tell us that we're screwed up. So what? Okay? The question is, what can we do for ourselves? That's what I'm here to talk about tonight. It's actually been 24 years now, so the slide's a little old. I've found that the foundation principles, if adhered to, 80% of the time, will give you a lifetime that is most likely to be free of disease, barring genetic influences, which are very, very uncommon to be the cause of disease. You see now that the medical system starting to lean on the genetics as a source of your pathology. In other words, you have the fat gene. Right. Okay, good. If you have the fat gene, you better also develop the exercise gene and the nutrition gene. Or the fat gene will be the only one at the bus stop. Okay? So what we see now is people can buy an excuse to be sick. They can buy an excuse to be overweight. They can go to the doctor and get told, oh, no wonder you've got this problem. Okay? But the reality of it is, if you live within a few principles 80% of the time, then your genetic weaknesses never really get to show their ugly head. The chain is only as strong as the weakest link, yet a well-maintained chain with a weak link is a lot less likely to break than a rusty old beat-up chain that nobody takes care of that has a weak link. So we all have weak links. Every one of us has weak links. We all have cancer cells in our body all the time. We're all breathing in funguses constantly. We're eating and drinking bacteria constantly. There's lots of little creatures that are standing there anxious to eat us. Because as far as they're concerned, we're more tasty than anything else they're getting. I mean, think about it. They're on the ground. Once they get on you, at least you're warm and you got a heartbeat. That's fresh stuff. So you got to make sure that you're healthy enough that they don't want to do their job and put you back in the soil. So what are the foundation principles? Well, there's just a few foundation principles. I use the ancient philosophy of Hippocrates. Hippocrates believed there was really only 3 things that almost all diseases came from. So Hippocrates spoke of Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Happiness. So when Hippocrates was a physician, he found that almost all the people that saw him with any kind of an ailment were suffering from a lack of quiet time, either or they were eating incorrectly or they were unhappy. Now, these are very critical things. If you're not eating right, it's the equivalent of putting the wrong kind of fuel in your car. How long does it take for you to notice there's something wrong if you put the wrong kind of fuel in your car? Try putting diesel in a gasoline-powered car, and you won't get very far at all. Once the fuel that's in the carburetor is gone, the engine will stop. If you put gasoline in a diesel engine, it'll burn a hole in the piston, the engine will probably blow up. So these are really extremely basic things. Very basic, and as I'll show you, they're very, very overlooked. The reason they're so overlooked is because nobody makes money by telling you to go to bed on time. Hardly anybody makes any money by saying, well, listen, you need to quit eating so much carbohydrate, or you're eating too much meat for your genetic needs or your racial and ethnic needs. Nobody makes any money by saying, why don't you spend some time trying to figure out what really makes you happy, so you know when it's happening. I've been in this business for 24 years, and I can count the patients on one hand that when I ask them what makes them happy, could give me a clear definition without actually sitting there and having to do a whole bunch of mental gymnastics to kind of come to some sort of a conclusion. And the reality of it is, if you don't know what makes you happy, how do you know if you have it or not? Right? So the United States is a place where we're in a perpetual search for this elusive happiness. And if you don't know what it is, how do you know when you find it? So it's kind of like a fish looking for water. Right? We're like the fish that drowned. We drowned in our health.